Imagine standing in Modena in the 1960s, the birthplace of automotive legends. Ferrari, Maserati, the greatest designers in the world. And yet, some of the most extraordinary cars of that era didn't come from those names. They came from an outsider. Tom Mead arrived in Italy with a simple dream: to own a racing car he could drive on the street. But that dream quickly evolved into something far more ambitious. He didn't just want to drive a Ferrari. He wanted to reinvent it, to make it bolder, more personal, and more extreme. From that vision, something truly unique was born. It started with the anti-Cobra, a direct response to Shelby's rising dominance. Then came a series of increasingly daring creations that would become known as the Thomassima. These were not factory-built machines, but handcrafted works, shaped in small workshops by skilled artisans, often after hours. Each car was an experiment, a statement, and a sculpture all at once. This wasn't production. This was the passion of one man, willing to challenge the biggest names in automotive history. In the early 1960s, the world of motorsport was shifting. Ferrari still dominated the racing scene, but a new force had arrived from America. Carroll Shelby's Cobra was lighter, raw, and brutally fast. By 1964, the Daytona Coupe had evolved into a serious threat, beating Ferrari on some of the world's biggest stages. For most, this was a battle between giants. But for Tom Mead, it was an opportunity. The idea for the anti-Cobra didn't come from a factory or a corporate strategy. It came from frustration. A Swiss baron, tired of being outpaced in his Corvette by Shelby Cobras, approached Mead with a challenge: build something better, not just competitive, but dominant. What followed was not just another custom car, but a personal answer to one of the most iconic machines of the era. The project began in 1963, using the remains of a wrecked Duntov racing Corvette. Mead salvaged the engine, but everything else would be built from scratch. Instead of modifying an existing platform, he engineered a bespoke tubular steel chassis, lightweight, rigid, and purpose-built. This wasn't a modification. It was a clean-sheet design. At its heart was a massive 6.2-liter GM V8, producing around 550 horsepower, more than enough to rival the 289 and 427 Cobras of the time. Power was sent through a German ZF 5-speed gearbox, paired with a quick-change differential. Mead wasn't just chasing speed. He was building adaptability, a car that could evolve depending on the demands of the track. Technically, the anti-Cobra was remarkably advanced. It featured fully independent suspension, gurling disc brakes on all four corners, with inboard rear discs to improve weight distribution. Magnesium components were used extensively, including the uprights and wheels, while much of the chassis and suspension relied on aluminum. The body itself was hand-formed from thin aluminum, just 1.5 millimeters thick. But as always with Mead, engineering was only part of the story. The design was bold, unconventional, and unmistakably personal. The car featured a removable targa roof and unique gull-wing-style windows. Not doors, but windows that lifted upward independently. When the roof was removed, the car had no side windows at all. It was a radical interpretation of what a sports car could be. Interestingly, the anti-Cobra was developed alongside Mead's early Thomassima projects. At the time, he relied on client commissions to fund his personal creations, and the anti-Cobra existed somewhere in between, a commissioned weapon and a creative experiment. Many of the ideas tested here would later influence the Thomassima series. Despite its potential, the anti-Cobra never achieved the fame it deserved. The car was raced, then eventually crashed. Poorly repaired and largely forgotten, it faded from public view. Mead later managed to buy it back, but instead of restoring it immediately, he stored it away in Italy, where it remains to this day. Today, the anti-Cobra is one of Tom Mead's most obscure creations. Few have seen it, and even fewer know its full story. Yet it represents a crucial turning point, the moment when Meade moved beyond modifying cars and began creating his own vision from the ground up. And perhaps most telling of all, Meade never let go of the idea. Years later, he spoke about building a modern version of the anti-Cobra, more advanced, more powerful, and true to the original spirit. Because for him, this wasn't just a car, it was the beginning of something bigger. In the mid-1960s, the line between engineering and art in the automotive world was incredibly thin. Very few people managed to cross it as boldly as Tom Meade, an American visionary who came to Italy and decided to build his own Ferrari-inspired dream car. That's how the Thomasima one was born, the first and now almost forgotten creation in a series of unique machines that blended American ambition with Italian craftsmanship. Although the car existed only briefly, its story remains one of the most fascinating and tragic in classic automotive history. Tom Meade arrived in Europe in the early 1960s, driven by a deep fascination with Italian sports cars. Originally from Hollywood, he had worked as a mechanic and restorer of exotic vehicles in California. Once in Italy, he immersed himself in the local automotive scene, quickly building connections with some of the most talented engineers and craftsmen of the era. His journey truly began when he acquired and restored a rare Maserati 350S, a project that opened doors and established his reputation. Through his work, Meade became involved with renowned coach builders such as Neri and Bonaccini, and gained access to the world of Ferrari and Maserati. His workshop became a hub for rare and exotic machinery. Legend has it that even Ferrari 250 GTOs and racing prototypes passed through his hands. Surrounded by this environment, Meade gathered not only experience, but also the confidence to pursue his ultimate goal, creating his own car. The Thomassima one was Meade's first complete original creation. The name itself reflected his ambition. Tom, from his own name, and Massima, meaning the best I can do in Italian. The car was built on the foundation of a Ferrari 250 GT and powered by its 3-liter V12 engine. However, what truly set it apart was not the mechanical base, but the completely unique body and vision behind it. Stylistically, the Thomasima one was a rolling sculpture. Meade drew inspiration from Italian masters like Medardo Fantuzzi and from the flowing aerodynamic forms seen in classic French coach building. The body featured smooth, organic curves that seemed shaped by airflow rather than rigid design rules. Meade approached the car more as an artist than an engineer, focusing on how the shape felt and looked at speed, rather than strictly following technical conventions. Underneath its sculptural body, the Thomassima one retained the proven performance of Ferrari engineering. The V12 engine produced around 240 horsepower, which, combined with a relatively lightweight structure, delivered strong performance for the time. While not a pure race car, it possessed a character much closer to racing machines than to conventional grand tourers. The chassis construction also reflected Meade's hybrid approach. He utilized lightweight tubular structures and components inspired by racing cars, aiming to keep the car agile and responsive. Although the engineering wasn't developed with factory-level precision, the combination of low weight and powerful engine gave the Thomasima one significant potential on the road. When the car was completed, it immediately drew attention. It was planned to be showcased publicly as a bold reinterpretation of what a Ferrari-based grand tourer could become. For Meade, it was more than just a car. It was a statement of identity and proof that an independent builder could rival the aesthetics of the greatest Italian designers. Tragically, the story of the Thomasima one came to an abrupt end. In November 1966, the Arno River flooded Florence and surrounding areas, destroying countless works of art. Among them was Meade's first creation. The Thomasima one was completely destroyed in the flood and could not be restored. It was a devastating loss, not only of a car, but of a vision. Despite this setback, Meade refused to give up. He went on to create the even more ambitious Thomassima 2, and later, the famous Thomassima 3. These cars brought him recognition and secured his place in automotive history. Yet it all began with the lost first model, the Thomassima 1. Only one example of the Thomassima 1 was ever built. It was never intended for mass production and remained a one-off creation, built purely out of passion and artistic ambition. This makes it one of the rarest and most elusive cars ever conceived. The Thomassima 1 never had an official price, as it was never sold or produced commercially. However, considering its Ferrari-based components and handcrafted construction, it would have been extremely expensive, likely comparable to the most exclusive Ferraris of its time. Today, the value of the Thomassima 1 can only be imagined. Had it survived, it would likely be worth millions of dollars as a one-of-a-kind piece of automotive art. Its story, however, may be even more valuable than the car itself, a powerful reminder of passion, creativity, and how even the most extraordinary creations can be lost to time. In the world of 1960s motoring, where legends like Ferrari and Lamborghini dominated headlines, one man dared to challenge the establishment, not with a company, but with pure passion. The result was the Thomassima 2, a car that looked like it belonged on the grid at Le Mans, yet was born in a small Italian workshop by an American dreamer. It wasn't officially a Ferrari, but it carried Ferrari DNA in its veins, and in many ways, it was even more daring than the cars that inspired it. After the devastating loss of his first creation, Thomassima 1, in the 1966 Florence flood, Tom Meade refused to give up. Instead, he used the setback as motivation to build something even more ambitious. By this point, he had already established strong connections within the Italian automotive world, working alongside craftsmen and engineers linked to Ferrari and Maserati. Thomassima 2 would become his bold reinterpretation of the era's most iconic race cars, especially the Ferrari tree 130 P3 and P4. The foundation of the car was as unconventional as its creator. Meade used elements from an old Cooper Formula One chassis, adapting and reshaping it to fit his vision of a road-going prototype. The tubular frame was handcrafted, combining racing inspiration with improvisation. It wasn't engineered in the traditional factory sense. It was sculpted, adjusted, and refined through experimentation. Powering the Thomassima 2 was a Ferrari-sourced 3-liter V12 engine from the 250 GT, producing around 240 horsepower. While that figure might not sound extreme by modern standards, it was more than enough for a lightweight, mid-engined machine in the 1960s. The engine's placement behind the driver ensured excellent weight distribution and gave the car a true racing character. The transmission setup was equally unique. A modified ZF gearbox was adapted for mid-engine use, paired with a transaxle layout more commonly seen in racing cars. This configuration improved balance and handling, although it required creative engineering solutions. Like much of the car, it was a blend of ingenuity and necessity. Suspension components were sourced from racing technology as well, including parts derived from Cooper and other performance-focused manufacturers. Independent suspension on all 4 wheels, combined with a lightweight chassis, gave the Thomassima 2 impressive agility. However, the car was never meant to be a pure competition machine. It was a road-going interpretation of a race car dream. Visually, the Thomassima 2 was nothing short of breathtaking. The body, handcrafted in aluminum by Carrozzeria Sports Cars under Piero Drogo, featured flowing aerodynamic lines inspired by endurance racing prototypes. Its low stance, curvaceous surfaces, and dramatic proportions made it look like a Ferrari prototype that somehow escaped the factory and found its way onto public roads. The interior continued this fusion of race car and grand tourer. Meade designed it with both functionality and style in mind, incorporating bucket-style seating, custom instrumentation, and a removable roof section. This allowed the car to transform into an open-top machine, adding versatility to its otherwise extreme character. When completed, the Thomasima II attracted significant attention. It appeared at prestigious events such as the 1968 Pebble Beach Concours d'Elegance, where it was controversially presented as a Ferrari 240 P4 Roadster, after being rebadged by its owner. The car also gained media exposure, appearing in magazines and even on television, helping cement its place in automotive folklore. Only one example of the Thomassima II was ever built. It was a true one-off, created for a specific client, and shaped entirely by Meade's vision. Over time, the car changed hands multiple times and suffered damage, but it was eventually restored, preserving its legacy for future generations. At the time of its creation, the Thomasima II didn't have a clearly defined price. It was built in a highly bespoke manner, with costs accumulating through parts, sourcing, craftsmanship, and engineering work. Given its Ferrari components and custom construction, it would have been extremely expensive, likely comparable to high-end Ferraris of the era. Today, the Thomassima II is considered a priceless piece of automotive history. While it may not reach the astronomical values of factory-built Ferraris, it is still estimated to be worth several $millions. Its rarity, unique story, and undeniable beauty make it highly desirable among collectors. Ultimately, the Thomasima II is more than just a car. It is a symbol of individuality in an industry dominated by giants. Tom Meade proved that with enough passion, creativity, and determination, one person could create something that stands alongside the greatest machines of its time. Even if it wasn't born in Maranello, it carried the same spirit, and perhaps, in some ways, even more soul. In 1969, at a time when the automotive world was dominated by giants like Ferrari and Lamborghini, a car appeared that stopped crowds in their tracks. It wasn't built by a major manufacturer, nor backed by a factory racing program. It was the Thomassima III, a one-off creation by Tom Meade that blurred the line between art and engineering. More than just a car, it was a statement. Proof that a single visionary could create something as captivating as anything coming out of Maranello. After the growing recognition of Thomassima II, Meade finally had the freedom to fully express his own design philosophy. Unlike the previous car, which was influenced by a client's expectations, Thomassima III was entirely his vision. It represented years of experience gained in Modena, working alongside craftsmen, engineers, and coach builders connected to Ferrari and Maserati. This time, there were no compromises, only pure creativity. The car made its debut at the 1969 Turin Motor Show, one of the most prestigious automotive events in Europe. Almost immediately, it became the center of attention. Crowds gathered so densely around the Thomassima III that organizers had to move surrounding displays to accommodate the public. It was a remarkable moment. An independent builder commanding the same attention as the world's biggest car manufacturers. Technically, the Thomassima III was built around proven Ferrari components. Under its sculpted body sat a front-mounted V12 engine derived from the Ferrari 250 GT, producing around 240 horsepower. While not the most powerful car of its era, it offered a rich driving experience defined by smooth power delivery and an unmistakable sound. Power was sent to the rear wheels, maintaining the classic grand touring layout. Although detailed technical specifications were never fully documented, the car benefited from a relatively lightweight construction and performance-oriented engineering. Its top speed was estimated to exceed 240 kilometers per hour, placing it firmly among high-performance machines of its time. However, performance was never the sole objective. This was a car built to inspire emotion as much as speed. The bodywork was handcrafted in aluminum and remains one of the most striking aspects of the car. Its lines were fluid, organic, and almost sculptural, reflecting Meade's artistic approach to design. Rather than sharp edges or aggressive angles, The Thomasima 3 embraced soft curves and perfect proportions, embodying the essence of 1960s Italian automotive beauty. One of its most distinctive features was the set of gull-wing doors, which opened upward to reveal a uniquely crafted interior. Inside, the car featured multi-level hand-built instrumentation and bespoke design elements throughout. The seats were integrated into the structure, reinforcing its connection to racing-inspired construction, while still offering a sense of luxury. The Thomassima 3 quickly became a media sensation. It was featured in major automotive publications such as Road and Track and Motor Trend, and even appeared on television programs like 60 Minutes. Its fame extended beyond traditional car culture. Mattel turned it into a Hot Wheels model, introducing the car to an entirely new generation of enthusiasts. Only one example of the Thomassima 3 was ever built. It was never intended for production and remained a deeply personal project for Meade. Unlike some of his earlier creations, he kept this car for himself, recognizing its importance as the purest expression of his vision. Over time, it became something of a legend, rarely seen, but never forgotten. In a surprising turn of events, the Thomassima 3 eventually received recognition from Ferrari itself. The car was displayed at the Galleria Ferrari Museum in Fiorano, near the Maranello factory, for a creation that existed outside the official Ferrari world. This was a powerful acknowledgement, almost like being welcomed into the inner circle. Originally, the Thomassima 3 had no official price, as it was never offered for sale. Built as a personal project using high-quality Ferrari components and handcrafted techniques, its creation would have required a substantial investment. However, financial gain was never Meade's primary goal. This car was about passion and expression. Today, the value of the Thomassima 3 is extremely difficult to estimate. As a one-of-one vehicle with Ferrari underpinnings and a unique story, it could easily be worth several $1,000,000. Its rarity, historical significance, and artistic design make it highly desirable among collectors, even if it doesn't carry an official Ferrari badge. Ultimately, the Thomassima 3 stands as the pinnacle of Tom Meade's work. It is more than just a car. It is a testament to individuality, creativity, and the courage to dream big. In an industry defined by corporations and massive budgets, Meade proved that one person, driven by passion, could create something truly timeless. The story of the Thomassima is more than just a collection of rare cars. It's a journey. From the raw ambition of the anti-Cobra, through the evolution of Thomassima 1 and 2, to the iconic presence of Thomassima 3. Each project pushed further, blending engineering with art, performance with personality. Without the backing of a major manufacturer, Meade created machines that didn't just compete with Ferrari. They stood apart from it, offering something more emotional, more individual, and more daring. Today, the Thomassimas remain symbols of a different era, a time when passion could still outweigh the system, when one person, driven by vision and courage, could create something truly unique. Tom Meade didn't just build cars. He crafted rolling sculptures that continue to inspire decades later. And while his creations may belong to the past, their legacy endures, because true automotive art is not defined by numbers or specifications, but by emotion, character, and the stories that refuse to fade.